So I need your help lah untuk mutekan diri sendiri. Okay, supaya kita tak dengar bunyi-bunyi lain kecuali my voice. Alright, so Assalamualaikum dan selamat malam. Saya ucapkan terima kasih banyak-banyak jutaan terima kasih kerana you guys sudi register for this class. So this is before I start with the content, I would like to brief a little bit about what this class is all about. So this is YSS punya new initiative, YSS e-training. We provide two types of training. Satu adalah yang sekarang you guys join ni, YSS Volunteer Management Training Course. Dan juga another one will coming soon selepas settle this part, which is YSS Life Coach Training series. So I will just explain a little bit apa yang terkandung dalam YSS Volunteering Management training course ni. So as you can see dekat dalam slide, kita ada 6 kelas. 6 kelas. Satu iaitu malam ni lah yang akan berlangsung sekarang, Volunteerism 101. And then next week kita ada Kickstarting Volunteer Projects and Initiatives. Seterusnya kita ada funding and budgeting for volunteer projects, dan lepas tu kita ada project grant, proposal writing, how to write proposal, how to write project grant, dan lepas tu kita ada impact measurement for volunteer projects, dan last sekali kita akan ada class duty of care for volunteers. So apa yang berbeza mengenai semua series ni adalah kita sekarang tengah dalam inisiatif untuk memastikan semua alumni YSS be equipped with all this kind of knowledge, all this kind of training yang you boleh praktikkan bila you buat projek sendiri di you punya community ataupun you punya campus. So bila you join all this training, contoh you hadir malam ni, you akan dapat satu sijil Volunteerism 101. Kalau you hadir course minggu depan, you hadir kelas lagi the next funding and budgeting, you hadir semua 6 kelas, you akan dapat another sijil yang akan mengatakan bahawa you dah pun di train under YSS Volunteer Management Training Course ni. So you akan dapat another certificate to to mention yang you dah pun hadir ke 6 kelas, dan you sepatutnya lah berbeza lah dengan alumni-alumni lain yang tak hadir langsung either of this training ataupun tak hadir langsung semua training ni, okay? So I hope that you guys will look forward untuk kelas-kelas yang akan datang. Sebab semua kelas yang akan datang ni semuanya internal, maksudnya semua yang memberikan lecture adalah semua kita punya dream team. So I know, I don't know lah if you are yang hadir malam ni, tapi these few days lately I've been receiving text from alumni cakap rindu YSS lah, rindu nak pergi misi lah dan sebagainya. So kita harap lah inisiatif ni dapat mengurangkan you punya kerinduan terhadap YSS. Alright, so I don't know berapa ramai orang sekarang dah masuk kelas. So I guess we should start with the class. By the way, untuk yang baru join, tadi saya ada share dekat ruang chat. First ada slide. This slide you can download and you can refer with your other device ataupun the device yang you are using now. Dan juga satu lagi adalah narrative. Narrative maksudnya guiding document. So it looks like this. So dalam ni ada semua referring material lah yang you can refer while I am explaining all the details in the slides. Alright, so apa tu? I'm not sure what happened. Dia buat apa tu? Alright, so apa Haifaz minta reshare balik link. Okay, Aina, I know you are on the line. Can you please reshare the link yang I shared just now, both the slides and also the guiding material?
Sure, no problem, Faz.
Alright, thank you. Oh, before I go any further, I would like to introduce my colleague. This is YSS, a new addition to YSS Dream Team. Miss Aina. She is joining me under YSS Center of Volunteer Excellence and Efforts. You guys might not be seeing her anytime this year, but I hope next year bila kita ada misi or any other project and you guys can physically come to YSS, you can meet this wonderful woman who have joined me just few months ago. Kan Aina?
Hi everybody. Hopefully I'll have the chance to meet you guys next year. Kita sama-sama doa COVID ni cepat berakhir, okay?
Alright, so without further ado, I nak explain lah apa yang akan berlaku malam ini. So, malam ni kita ada 3 perkara ni. First, you akan belajar the landscape of voluntary sector. By the way, I'm not sure, apa tu, yang register kelas ni ada a few from ASEAN countries. Until I'm not seeing any ASEAN friends yet. So if you guys join the class, if you guys notice any our ASEAN friends join the class, please notify me so I can speak in English. Okay, tak cakap Melayu, sekarang cakap dua-dua bahasa lah. Alright, so malam ni kita akan belajar 3 benda. Satu, landscape of voluntary sector. I know everybody dah tahu kan, if you cakap pasal kesukarelawanan, maybe you can explain apa tu kesukarelawanan, what kind of activities yang jatuh bawah elemen aktiviti kesukarelawanan ni. Tapi tonight's class hopefully will open up your mind to how huge the landscape of voluntary sector actually is. And then kita pun akan belajar volunteering practices in the 21st century. So perkara ni maybe you tak perasan because we just join volunteering as an activity. We don't really know how the trend changes over the years. So later kita akan figure out, kita akan explore macam mana volunteering practices ni dah berubah over the time. Alright, and then kita pun akan belajar the last element adalah enabling environment for volunteering. Kenapa ada this part adalah because we want you guys to conduct your own community project. So it is very important for you to know all the elements that constitute to enabling environment for volunteering untuk dapatkan volunteering activity yang lebih inklusif, volunteering volunteering environment yang lebih welcoming for all new volunteers especially. Alright. So, and at the end, kita akan ada Q&A session, so you guys can ask me question or we can open up the floor for discussion. Alright. So, first and foremost, kita akan tengok the introduction to the voluntary sector. So, kita pun dah tahu volunteering tu apa definition dia. So, volunteering is a voluntary act. Kegiatan yang dijalankan secara sukarela of an individual or group freely giving time and labor for common good without financial gain. That means if you do any activities without getting paid, that is what considered as volunteering. So this is very general. Everybody knows about this. Alright, so apa types of volunteering yang ada dalam voluntary sector ni? So kita ada 4. Okay, so there is a research paper yang group kan types of volunteering ni to 4 groups, which is first is mutual aid. Maksudnya kita tolong orang lah. Kita tolong orang macam humanitarian ataupun post disaster we go to help people and stuff like that. Second, philanthropy. That means you do things because you ada kemampuan to do that. Philanthropy, buat benda baik. Okay, philanthropist, orang panggil orang yang buat kerja-kerja amal ni. And then participation, types of volunteering. That means you join volunteering to participate in an activity. And finally is advocacy. So advocacy ni adalah you join volunteering to advocate. That means to somehow macam preach, to berdakwah, to share whatever you know, all the knowledge you know to other people. Contoh, you percaya on the cause of quality education for all communities. Tak kira dia orang bandar ke, dia orang pedalaman ke, you believe in that equal opportunity for all. Equal education, access to education for all. So you will advocate about that cause to everybody you meet, everybody you come across to. So that is what we call as advocacy type of volunteering. So in this okay, thank you Iqbal for notifying me. Alright, welcome to our ASEAN friends. Alright, so proceed. Voluntary sector. Voluntary sector itself, it is driven, as you can see in the slide, it is driven by all these 3 types of what we call organizations. First, we have volunteer involving organizations. This is the label that the voluntary sector used to call all the organizations which have the element of volunteers in them. For example, YSS, we are driven by you. We are driven by volunteers. That means we are a part of the volunteer evolving organizations. We also have civil society organizations. Civil society organizations is very simple. The other names is, you might know this, non-governmental organizations, NGO, or the other name is civil society organizations. Other terms, other organization which drives the voluntary sector is the third sector. Third sector is an umbrella term that covers a range of different organizations with different structures and purposes, belonging neither to the public sector nor to the private sector. So it's different. There's charities, there's foundation, there's clubs, there's societies. So all these kind of organization, it belongs to this third sector. We also have social sector. Social sector is partially non-profit sector and partially non-governmental sector with the main aim to achieve social development. So these can be considered such as UNDP, UNV, organizations like that. They are a UNHCR, which the main aim is to provide or to achieve social development, providing basic needs to people. There are also other NGOs that complies to this characteristic. And finally, this is new term I came across to while I was browsing for materials. It's called volunteer land. It sounds funny, you know, it sounds like Disneyland, something like that. You can imagine it to be like that somehow, volunteer land. So this volunteer land is a term that came up when these three guys, they were doing a research on how volunteer sector give the impact to the economy. So when they do that research, they found out that the NGOs across the world representing the sector of global volunteer workforce, if they do that work in the normal kind of work, that means they're getting paid and stuff, they will gain about trillion profits that can benefit to the GDP of certain country. So because it is too much, the researcher actually has a group all these NGO sectors, the volunteer sectors to this term of what we call volunteer land. So to conclude, voluntary sector is actually driven by all these three types of organization. So all these three types of organization, you can see back in the boxes here. So there are charities, there are foundations, there are human or social welfare organizations, there are advocacy groups. We also have faith-based groups as voluntary who are driving the voluntary sector. We also have community groups such as the one you have in your community maybe, and also recreational sports. So all these are not limited to, but these are just some kind of example to provide you with a picture of what kind of organization actually drive the voluntary sector. All right, so I hope you guys don't have any question, or if you have, you can just hold on and ask me at the end of the session, okay? Wait, what will next? All right, so this might come up a little bit smaller for you guys to view through your phone, but I hope you guys can see it. So this is a figure for you to understand the institutionalization of volunteering. When we say institutionalization, that means we are formalizing volunteering. The volunteering activity that we know currently, or maybe those the beginners or the volunteers that do volunteerism for leisure, they might not know that volunteering is a sector that can be formalized. It is a sector, it can be institutionalized. And you can see through this figure, there are two kinds of comparison between a formal volunteering activities and also informal volunteering. On your right side will be the institutionalized, that means the the formal volunteering, and the left side is not institutionalized, or what we call as informal volunteering. So both kind of volunteerism is not in any way better than better than the other. Both kind can coexist. Both kind can exist in the same time, and it's not exclusive. That means um all these elements can be there together. All right. So if you can see that here in the slides, we have six elements of what differentiate between a formal volunteering and also an informal volunteering. I won't go through each and every of these elements, but I will highlight what can you actually see clearly. So first, the need. So when you say the need of volunteering, when you do formal volunteering, it is usually targeted generally. That means you don't have specific community that you go into. You just go to the community and you help all of them. Just like when you go for our mission. When you go for our mission, let's say you went to Sarawak for YSS ASEAN mission. You went to Miri, the village. You help all of the community over there. You help all of the community that lives in the location of the mission that we assign. But if you do informal volunteering, usually the need or the reason why we do that is because we are targeting specific communities, specific families, specific people that you want to help in that community. So it is very particular. That means you already identify those who need help, and you go there to help them. It is very specific like that. Okay. So second one is the structure. Of course, if you do formal volunteering, that means you do it under an organization. You do it with YSS, you do it with your campus, you do it with your club, you do it with your, maybe you have your own foundation, you have your own organization. So you do that with an organization. But if you do an informal volunteering, usually you do it with friends. That means, for example, I invite Mr. Rahim. Mr. Rahim, there's a family over here that needs our help. So why don't we go help them? Okay? All right, sorry. Why don't we go help them? So me and Mr. Rahim and then we'll just go by ourselves without involving the organization we are with. So that is one kind of informal volunteering. Or if I can highlight Asma, you know, Asma, our alumni who won the award just last weekend. So she did informal volunteering where she herself and her close friends, she went to help community around her that needs help. So that is an example of informal volunteering. All right. The rest you can read by yourself, I guess. If you have any question, you can keep and ask me at the end of our class. Is my video okay or is it lagging? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, Fuzz. It's not
Okay.
lagging.
All right. All right. So we move on to the next item, which is the types of volunteer activities. This is something that the global sector, the international environment of volunteerism is talking about currently. So there are two kinds of volunteer activities. First is what we call as micro volunteering, and we also have macro volunteering. Why this came up? Why this came up is because of COVID-19. Okay, before COVID-19, everybody is doing macro volunteering, in which we all go all out. We go help people who don't have access to basic sanitation. We go build water tanks. We go help build a house temporarily shelter for people who might be the victim of fire tragedy, for example, or we go do educational long trips, long mission to provide education access to isolated kids who live all way deep in the jungle, for example. All right, so we go all out. We do this big project, major project, in volunteerism. But what happened after COVID? Because of especially during the MCO, because of the restriction to be physically available, voluntary sector, we kind of move into micro volunteering. Okay, micro volunteering is what we call of the volunteer activities, which is small tasks, and it is completed in short time. And also, it also has firm and end. It also has firm endpoint and very specific in its action compared to major kind of volunteerism. But now that the COVID kind of you know, I don't know if it's okay to say slow down, but kind of we are coping. We are coping with COVID-19. Both kind of volunteering activities still exist, right? If you can see in the slides, there are these are the major comparison between micro volunteering and also macro volunteering. Micro volunteering, okay, just like I explained just now, it has firm endpoint and specific scope. It also requires minimal task force to do it. It doesn't require like the one you went to, like you went to Sarawak with 20 of your teammates to build a house, to build a toilet. No, we don't need that for micro volunteering. But for macro volunteering, the work is intensive. It is ongoing. That means it usually being carried out in longer time period. So it generally take longer time to deliver. Thus, it requires more and larger task force to complete the task. All right. So, what kind of example can we see based on this micro volunteering and macro volunteering? You have to also note that, however, whether someone wants to do micro volunteering, example of micro volunteering activities such as what I can explain as an example is maybe translation work. We have Malay document that needs to be translated to English document, so we put it up and ask if anybody wants to volunteer to translate the document from Malay to English. So that is one kind of micro volunteering activities. Or there's also activities such as designing poster, or maybe mapping families in need for food assistance, let's say. So that is one kind of micro volunteering. All right. So you have to note that it is whether someone opt to do micro volunteering and not micro volunteering. That means they just like to do something that can be settled in short time, that requires not that much of commitment, but they still want to volunteer. So that is their choice to do volunteer work. But if anyone else, if maybe you guys prefer to do macro volunteering, that means you love to go on the ground, you love to pour your heart and soul in longer period to help people, that is also your choice. You have to note that it is not in any way better than the other, so it can also coexist in the same situation. So for example, we have maybe, okay, this is an example. So we have a project which we want to provide free tuition to kids in Sarawak. But how do we identify the kids who can be the recipient of this free tuition? So due to COVID-19, due to the challenges that we have now, we can deploy a group of volunteers to go on the ground to teach kids. But we can also have online volunteer to map the kids who are the right recipient for this free tuition. How do they do this? They do this digitally. They can do this online. They can do this by calling people, by calling all the families, contacting the JKM, for example. They can contact the school and ask which students who you think is in need for the is in need for free tuition. So this is the kind of situation where both micro volunteering and macro volunteering coexist. All right. So um usually, even if you do micro volunteering activities, it can also lead to macro implications. It doesn't mean that if you just do micro volunteering, you will only get that little impact. It don't always work that way. Okay, it can, just like I mentioned just now, it can coexist and it is not exclusive just by itself. Okay. All right, are we good so far, or am I going too fast?
Yeah, we are good.
Okay. All right, so the next part is volunteering for sustainable development. So for all we know, okay, throughout your time with YSS, we've been preaching to you about sustainable development goals. But why do we need sustainable development goals actually? Why do you think we need sustainable development goals actually?
Well, it can be used as the guideline so we can move further with our goals, or we can move further with our missions. What are you gonna do? What are you targeting in a mission or somehow?
Mhm,
That's my 2 cents.
mhm. All right, so I've been saying all these answers. All right. So at the end of it, at the end of the journey of why we need sustainable development goals, at the end of it, our aim is to not leaving anyone behind. So the reason why recently there was a meeting called Global Technical Meeting for Volunteering and Voluntary 2020. All right. It was organized by UNV and also an organization called International Forum for Volunteering in Development. So they have been discussing to include volunteering, to integrate the element of volunteering as as a factor for sustainable development. All this while, when we talk about sustainable development, what matters the most is the policy. That means it is the government power to change a certain country, a certain practice that has been bad for the world to something better, such as all those rules, all those guidelines that complies to all our SDG goals. But now that they are seeing that volunteering also plays some role in sustainable development, they want to include volunteering. They want governments especially to acknowledge and recognize volunteerism as an element for sustainable development. So when we talk about sustainability, there are three pillars that should come to your mind. Those who attended our VLDP last year should have known this. All right. There are three pillars that should come to your mind. First is economy. Second is society. And the third is the environment. Or to put in simpler terms, when you talk about sustainability, you have to consider the factor of three P's. First is the profit. Second is the people. And third is the planet. If you can consider all these factors in your project, in your lifestyle, or in your whatever, you can possibly ensure that your actions, your lifestyle is sustainable not only for you but also for the next generation. But how about sustainable development? Okay, how about sustainable development? What actually meant by sustainable development? So sustainable development is what we call as an action which humankind should not only satisfy its current needs. That means when you want to develop your environment, you don't just satisfy what you want now, but you also have to consider the fate of your next generation. For example, now you want to have accessibility to cities, for example. So what you do is you just build roads in the forest, you cut down all the trees, you don't consider at all your next generation, how would they live in a world like that? So this is an example of sustainable development. So when you do something, you not only have to consider your needs at that time, but you also need to think further to consider your next generation, how will they live, all right? So how do you think volunteerism has contributed to sustainable development? There is a research where people study how volunteerism actually contributes to sustainable development. So all these five items that you can see, all these five items you can see on your screen, is the factors contributing to sustainable development by the act of volunteerism. First, it is inclusive. So just like YSS, we don't judge people. Whoever you are, whether you are from B40 community, whether you are from T20 family, everybody can join us. Whether you study medicine, whether you are a teacher, whether you're an engineer, whether you are architect, whether you are anything, you can join us as long as you, of course, conform to the selection criteria. All right, inclusion. So when you talk about volunteering, the element of inclusiveness usually is there. Next is the ownership. You strengthen local ownership of development processes, just like how we taught you when you go for mission. When you go on the ground, you empower the community to own the project that you do. This is because when you go back to your campus, the project won't be, won't just be left just like that by the community. At least when they have a sense of ownership towards that project, they themselves will take care of the project with you. So this is the kind of factors that contributes when you do volunteer activities. Third is innovation, where you create new form of collaboration that leads in social innovation. So we have a lot of example of our previous volunteers where they design low cost water filter for community. So this is some kind of innovation that you apply when you do volunteer activities. Fourth is participation, where you create a pathway to participation and active citizenship. This is what we do not only in YSS, but I think every organization which do volunteer activities do this. We create a path for you to actually contribute to your community. That means we teach you and we expose you that you can yourself be the change maker to your community. You don't have to rely to your government. You yourself can make the change needed in your community. And lastly, inspiration, modeling different forms. That means your stories could inspire other people to do volunteers. The stories of the beneficiaries of your activities can also inspire you yourself to volunteer even more. So what can we conclude in all these elements contributing to sustainable development? It is the relational aspect of volunteering. What does it mean by relational? That means it is relatable. When you do things, there has to be that human touch. Okay, there has to be that heart to heart thing. When you do it, you have to have that individual sense when you do volunteering activities. There have been a research that suggests that effectiveness of development programs, effectiveness of volunteering programs is not determined by the lack of services. That means if you do projects, even if you are lacking in all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, if you deliver well, that means you have rapport with the local community, you can engage well with the community, that shows success of that project. So the main output here, main lesson for you to learn here is that when you do volunteering, whatever it is for, okay, sustainable development, or you just want to do it because you want to do it, the most important thing is that human engagement, where you actually create rapport, you understand what the locals need before what you think the locals need. you have to understand the reason why the community needs that certain project oversees what you actually think that the community needs. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So when you do project, what the most important thing you have to consider is what the community need, what the lifestyle of the community actually needs, not what you think that the community need. Okay, I've been seeing people leaving and joining. I hope you guys are okay. Right. All right, so we are moving on to the 21st century of volunteering practices. All right. So just if you can recall the first slide I mentioned, we have these four types of volunteering types. Four types of volunteering. First is mutual aid, we have service, we have campaigning, we have participation. But the new addition to the volunteering practices in this century is leisure, where people actually opt to do volunteering activities to fill up their time. And simply to fill up their time. That's why the options of doing micro volunteering exist, because there are demands of people who need this. All right. But of course, we have to note that we shouldn't judge people based on what they want to do. Some people want to do long-term volunteer work. Some people want to volunteer, but they don't have time, so they opt to do shorter term of volunteer work. So this is the kind of all these five types are the kind of volunteering activities that exist now, right? However, you have to also note that the 2020 version is, instead of looking all these elements as silo, as a single element, they can also coexist between each other. They can also overlap between each other. That means some people may do volunteer because they want to campaign. They want to do campaign for the cause they believe in, but it might also due to because the reason they have to participate in that activity. So it can overlap between each other. All right. And also, instead of viewing all this as a single factor, you also have to understand that these factors in 2020, when they revised the types of volunteering, they view this as a different dimension, as categories of how people express themselves through volunteering. So just like I mentioned just now, any categories can coexist between each other depending on what kind of activities that is, right? So we have mutual aid, we have service, we have campaigning, participation, and the new addition to these types of volunteering is leisure. Okay, so what is this beautiful, colorful circle that you are seeing now? This is a very unique summary of volunteering practices in the 21st century. Oh, there's a typo over there. Okay, 21st. Okay. So if you can see on your left side, there are 5 components to volunteering practices. We have structure, we have site, we have intensity, we have the aspiration, we have category. What does it mean by this? Right? You can look at this simultaneously, okay, the left side and also the right side. For structure, volunteering activity, it can be done formally through organization, or it can also be done informally. That what it means by structure. It can be done formal or informal way. Second is the site. Whether you want to do it online or you want to do it on site, this is the options available now for people to do volunteer job. And for on-site sphere, the on-site element, if you can see here, the orange one, it can further down be broken down into community-based volunteering. It can also be national volunteering, or it can also be international volunteering. So a lot of it can be broken down into other 3 parts. And then the intensity. It can be episodic. Episodic ni mana dia berkala. Okay, berkala. It involves short term, sporadic engagement. That means just at this area and then further later it stops and then it grows again, something like that. Or it can also be one-off event, and it can also be a regular event. So for this intensity, it can be two types: sporadic or episodic or regular kind of volunteering activity. Fourth is the aspiration. Why you do volunteer? Why you volunteer? First is community building. You do it because you want to build your community. And second is because you want to self-build yourself. And the final part is the category, which we explained in detail just now. There are 5 categories now, which is participation, we have mutual aid, service, leisure, and campaigning. So how do we actually view this graphic? You have to look at it as a spectrum. It is not binary, that means it's not just black and white. It can be everything. It doesn't have to be either this or that, okay? It doesn't have to be either black or white. It can exist, it can coexist, okay? It can coexist. So for example, if you do formal or informal volunteer activity, it can exist online or on site. Okay, they can exist together. It doesn't have to be just themselves, just standalone. Okay, just standalone. All right. So for now, are we clear about this? All right. So we are viewing this as a spectrum instead of viewing it as a standalone element. It can exist. It can coexist together. Alright, so we have come to this part. Okay, discussion. As a young volunteer, what do you reckon are the elements that makes you want to volunteer? What makes you want to volunteer? For this session, you can log on to Slido. Okay, you can enter the event code, and then there will be you can turn on the live polls. There will be two sections. There will be 2 sections, Q&A and also live polls. So you can enter that live polls and answer that question. As a young volunteer, what do you reckon the elements that makes you want to volunteer? People see that. Sorry. Sorry. Wait. You can log on to Slido, right? And enter the event code. And you can answer the question. As a young volunteer, what do you reckon are the elements that makes you want to volunteer? Can you guys log on to Slido? Okay. So there's about 60 people now. So I'm hoping for 60 answers. What are the elements that makes you want to volunteer? Is it because of the culture? Or is it because you want to be recognized? Or is it because you think you have the skill to volunteer? What's the event code? All right. It's 12675. You should keep the Slido, okay? So you can ask question over there. Log on to Slido and enter the event code 12675. Yep. Thanks, Aina. Okay, we have a few answers now. I'm not sure how do I share this, but oops. Okay, I'm trying to share. Can you see it, Anna? Okay, you can. Right. So we have all these answers on screen. Help the vulnerable group in the society so we grow together, share our knowledge about our profession. Lesson, okay, selflessness. Wow, who answered this? Feeling of happiness. Okay, I like this answer. Element that makes me want to volunteer is knowing that I am contributing at least something in my capability to make this world a better place. To be youth who can contribute towards our nation. Responsibility. I want to give back to society because I had enough. Wow, siapa jawab ni? One of the elements that makes. Okay, the culture, spirit of giving back, of course. I like that all the answers are about you yourself want to contribute to people, you know? All this selflessness element in your answer actually makes me feel very happy that we are doing this wonderful job with YSS with you. Learning something and try make new friends. Like to see people give a true smile. Yep, this is also the reason why I volunteer in the first place. All right, so we have all these wonderful answers, my old friends. now we go back to our so now we go back to our next question. How do you suggest to improve the environment which will make people want to volunteer? So just now you were saying that you volunteer because you want to contribute to people, you want to teach kids, okay? You want to learn something for yourself. So how do you suggest that we improve the environment of volunteering so that you can do all this? So that you can experience all this. How do you suggest to improve? So this same question will be on Slido. Hold on, I will. Okay. That'll be next. That'll be the other question. Yeah. How do you suggest to improve the environment which will make more people want to volunteer? So the feeling you were saying just now, why you want, the reason you volunteer, because you want to see people smile, because you want to contribute to people, because you had enough of the world, so you want to give back to people. You want to see, you want to teach kids English. So how do you suggest we improve the environment, we improve the surrounding, so that more people can feel what you feel, more people can also be driven by your passion to volunteer? How do we improve this? Okay, you can, I think there will be another poll. Okay, you just select that and then you answer the question on your screen. Good answer, be the role model. Okay. Making the environment enjoyable, not too serious. Do you think YSS is very serious, just like in Scout? Or is Scout more fun than YSS? Passionately sharing our experience. Everyone can showcase their ideas bravely without any criticism. Yep. Show more happiness. Make volunteering a place of happy person. Is it a place of sad person now? Yeah, share experience social media. Role model. Bring forward their inner self to serve for people. Yep, show to the world that each and everyone can be a volunteer, not just someone with money or else. That's true. Okay, a lot of answer about sharing your experience. True, educate and motivate people since they are kids. Keep updating our friends. Okay, yep. Lots of them do not know about volunteer activities. Actually, if your circle do not know about volunteer activities, I would have to blame you. Because you yourself don't want to share the enjoyment you had while you volunteer. All the way to Sarawak, to Sabah, to Vietnam, to Laos with your friends. Start by making, be humble. Start volunteering. Alright, so we go back to our slides. So all the factors you were mentioning just now, it belongs to one of the or two of the factors that you can see one or two elements that you can see in your on your screen right now. So what are the elements that constitutes to enabling environment of volunteerism? You have to first understand the problem. Why the topic of enabling environment of volunteerism came up. Okay, this is because there are still parts, or there are still a lot of community, there are still a lot of people who don't know or who feel like they can't do volunteer work because they don't have the ability to. Maybe because of the condition, maybe because of the limitation of they themselves. All right. So what can we do when you yourself, okay, what can we all do when we do our volunteer projects, when we do our volunteer initiatives? What can we do to enable environment so that so that everybody can volunteer, no matter what they are, no matter whether they are disabled or whether they are living deep in the jungle or whether they are live in the city. Okay, no matter who they are, no matter where they are from, they all can volunteer. What kind of activities or what kind of elements that constitute to this kind of enabling environment? So first we have contextual elements. Second, we have actor-based elements. Third, we have relational elements, and final one is system-wide factors. All those answers that you answered just now, most of those belong to the first one, contextual elements. That means you understand and you recognize volunteerism itself. You understand the reason why you do volunteer work. You understand the need of why you have to do volunteer work. You also recognize that volunteerism also have some power to change community, to make a better community. You have this contextual understanding. Second is political, social, cultural, and economic factors. All these are those that answer you want to do volunteer work because you want to learn culture, you want to learn how other people live, you want to learn how the lifestyle of Sarawak people, Sabah people, Vietnamese, Laotian and all. These are the kind of elements that constitute to enable environment of volunteerism. And thirdly is social inclusion. That means you being inclusive, just like we talked about just now. Second is actor-based elements. Who are the actors? First, we have the state. That means the country. We have civil society, and we also have private sector. All these actors, they play some kind of role with each other and also together with the volunteers to enable environments of volunteerism. How? For example, state or the country, it allows volunteerism through policy, maybe. They don't have restrictive policy or restrictive law about how you can volunteer in other country, for example. Civil society, they provide platform for you to volunteer. Private sector, they provide funding for you to volunteer. These are all the type of actors, of how these actors contributes to this to enabling environment of volunteerism. Thirdly is the relational elements. This is the topic that we talked about just now, being relational. That means being relatable. Relationships and power dynamics between actors. So all these states, civil society, private sector, volunteers, they communicate with each other, they collaborate with each other to contribute to an environment that is enabling volunteer activities. And finally, system-wide factors. We have partnerships, we have technology and funding, we have factors shaping volunteerism operations. Okay, this is the system, the governance, the SOP. So these all belong to the system-wide factors. So what you can learn from all of these elements is that it can also coexist between each other, can coexist among the rest, and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Okay. I am glad that all of you who are here tonight, you understand the context of volunteerism. That's why we have those wonderful answers just now. So at least those part we have taken off. Okay, you understand the context, you understand the concept of why you do volunteer work. So the other part is when you do your own initiative, you have to also consider all these elements. How to be more inclusive, especially how to be more inclusive of other people other friends that wants to join volunteerism. Okay, how do you attract those who don't have interest at all in doing volunteering work? Or how do you make volunteering accessible to those who are disabled? How do you make volunteerism accessible to those who don't have internet, for example? How do you make volunteerism accessible to B40 community? You yourself, okay, among all of us, even myself, we belong to B40 community, so we understand what kind of opportunity, what kind of path that makes us want to do volunteer work. So these are all the kind of actions, the kind of elements that we have to build, we have to develop, we have to consider when we do projects to enable environment for volunteerism. All right. So before we move to Q&A session, I would like to conclude that volunteering is a complex activity that cuts across a range of practices, benefits, and motivations. That's why when I explained just now, all those elements, all those factors, all those contributing elements, they don't have to be standalone. They can coexist among each other. Okay? Just like any other sector, volunteerism is not just a black and white topic. Okay? It's not like maths, okay, when you 2 plus 2 4, if you do other kind of numbers, you won't get the answer, for example. Okay, when you do any different kind of solution, you won't get the answer, for example. So it is also something that I think it is worth for everybody to look into. Okay, especially you yourself as an alumni, we are targeting that you guys have some sort of different knowledge comparing to other people who never join YSS as student volunteer. And when you have that knowledge, you share with the rest who don't have the opportunity to join us. Okay, so I know that not only you guys, even myself, before I am being enlightened with all this knowledge, we only know volunteerism as an act where we go on the ground, we get dirty, we engage with people, we have to pour our sweat, tears, and everything. But actually, when you do that, you have to share not only the hard part, you have to share the enjoyment that I believe everybody possess when they do volunteer work. Okay, just like the answer we had just now, you love to see how people smile, you like to see how people actually benefited by the way you teach them English, for example. Okay, so share the enjoyment. So this is how you can always encourage that volunteer you can encourage the volunteer practices among your friends and families. All right, so if you want to voice out your thoughts on this course or anything about YSS, you can email us at yss.cove@gmail.com, or you can personally WhatsApp my work number. I don't guarantee that I will reply, but I will read, okay? So you can contact us via that, or you can also contact other officers of YSS that you might be missing right now. All right, so we have quite some time to talk, and we also have opportunity for Q&A session. So I think I will open up the floor for question. Okay, and then maybe another 15 minutes for us to just have a chit chat, maybe. Okay, alright. Let me open up the Q&A first. How do I? Oops. Show Q&A. Alright, so for now, you can ask me questions through slido.com. Just use that tab for Q&A. You can log on by entering the event code 12675 and ask me questions. Oh, okay. Okay, you can ask me questions, or you guys don't have any questions to ask. I'm not sure how do I. Okay, okay, okay. Wow. Okay, I'll answer the easiest question first. Can I get a copy of the slide presentation that you present just now? Yes, you may. Okay, we will email you the slide. You also email you the guiding document, and we will also give you a link for you to fill up so that you can get your e-cert and also all the materials that were presented. Okay. How do you think we could ensure no one left behind by our Digital Volunteerism Act? This is very interesting question, and this is not only being discussed right now, it is being discussed globally. Okay, so right now, when the world has become digital, where physical volunteerism is not only an option for you to volunteer anymore, there exists the element of digital volunteerism, online volunteering. How do you think we can ensure that no one is left behind through this online volunteerism action? First, I believe that digital volunteerism should not replace physical volunteerism. It should exist together. Okay, and you should also understand the concept that currently the sector is diversifying on the model on how we do volunteerism. How do we do our volunteering work? That means we don't only have the options to do physical volunteering now, but we also have digital volunteering now. Okay, how do we make sure that nobody is left behind when we do uh digital volunteerism? There should exist an element of physical volunteering even if you do digital volunteerism. For example, like the example I had just now with you, we had a project. For example, we are having a project of providing free tuition to unfortunate kids in Sarawak. We should provide that opportunity of doing that mapping task to our volunteers who have the limitations to go to Sarawak, who have no money to go to Sarawak, who have the limitation to go to Sarawak. Okay, time, maybe distance and stuff. But for volunteers who have the capability to do so, we will send them to teach kids on the ground. So this is an example of how both online volunteering and also physical volunteering coexist. So the concept that you have to grasp is that digital volunteerism doesn't have to replace physical volunteerism. It can still exist together. Alright, what do you think shall we do if people around us do not support our volunteering activities, such as our parents or older person? Alright, if people around you don't support you to do volunteering activities, the best thing you can do, and this is what I believe in also, is that you have to show them by example. Like when you do this volunteer work, maybe they don't support you because they do not see the benefit of volunteering activities on you. Maybe you don't show all the good things that you have learned when you do volunteering work in front of them. Okay, so what you do is you lead by example. When all the things you have learned, all the good things, all the positive, all the soft skills that you have learned during your volunteering activities, you apply it you apply it in front of them. You wash the plates, you become more diligent, you become more hardworking to do house chores and stuff. So these when you lead them by example, they can see the benefits, how volunteering actually impacted you. maybe they will provide you support after this. And you should also ask them to also be involved in that work. This can be done in micro volunteering kind of activities. That means you just ask them to, donate some money to unfortunate people, maybe visit a family who don't have, who lost their job during the MCO, okay? Just ask your family to buy a food pack for them and ask them to, together with you, deliver the food pack. So these are the kind of thing that can trigger somebody to join, to do volunteering activities. It doesn't have to be major, but the most important thing is to actually start doing. If there are any future YSS mission that alumni can join. Okay, wow. Batang lupa 2014. Ni alumni senior ni. Alright. So, for this year, we don't have any missions coming up because of COVID-19. But we have Project House, our special projects. But this is, of course, only open to our Malaysian alumni. We have Project House happening in Terengganu. We have one in Taman Medan in Selangor. And also another one is PPR what? I forgot PPR some, but it is in Selangor. So you guys can follow all these activities through our social media, and we will update you if we need volunteers. But you can also engage any of our YSS staff if you are interested to become one of the helper, one of the facilitators who can facilitate the tuition, the free tuition for before tickets. Oh, interesting question. Altruism is something good for volunteering activities, but do you think that altruism with COVID-19 outbreak will be a good character while ignoring our safety? The most important thing when you do volunteer work is to take care of yourself first. Then only you take care of others. So, by this answer, you should actually understand that before you want to help people, it is very important to take care of your safety first. Especially during this COVID-19, you just don't know whether you become you can infect other people, okay? Maybe you are not infected, but you can be the spreader to other people. So this is the thing that you shouldn't ignore. One of the most important characteristic of being a volunteer is to have a good sense, okay? You don't just ignore your own responsibility towards your own self just because you want to help people. That is completely wrong for me. Next missions where I went, kita tak ada misi tahun ni. This question is directed, okay, of course it's only me here, okay? In your opinion, what is the most important values which must be upheld by the volunteers? The most important values I think that should be upheld by volunteers is the first intention, your first intention of why you want to do volunteer. I talk about this a lot of times, especially during PDT. Every single PDT, I will talk about this. It is very important for you to stay true to yourself. You have to remember the reason you start doing volunteer work, and no matter what happened in the future, if you get the spotlight, if you are, if you got busy with, or you get overwhelmed with all your work, or just being overwhelmed with adulting and stuff, it is very important for you to stay true to your personality, to your true self, and also the reason why you first do volunteer work. These are the things that will drive you all the way to always do volunteer work, or even if you don't, or even if you stop being volunteer, at least you have that heart to contribute to the community whenever you see those who are unfortunate and need your help. I hope that answers your question. What is the factor that motivates yourself to join YSS? Wow. All right. So why I joined YSS? The reason I joined YSS is of course the exposure the first time, And when I first joined the first mission, I was actually an alumni Vietnam 2015. And then second mission, I went to Laos 2016. And after that, I went for internship with YSS and currently being employed by YSS. Currently, I'm the senior executive. So basically, my life, whole of my adult life has been of YSS, right? So what is the factor that motivates myself to join YSS is because of the exposure. It's because that I think every day I learn something different. And what I love the most is that I don't actually feel like I am working when I do this work. I feel like I'm doing something that I like because this is what my passion is all about. And even if I don't always go down to the ground like like Mr. Rooney, like Mr. Rahim, they always go to the ground. I think I am making that change by sharing my knowledge with all of you right now. Okay, for example, or I teach you guys how to measure impact. So those are the little things that contribute to my existence in YSS this long. How to overcome volunteering challenges? Can you specify what kind of volunteering challenges are you talking about? It can be funding, it can be limitations of yourself. For example, you don't have the money, you don't have the maybe you don't have the knowledge how to start. So can you please if you can, clarify? Mm. Okay. It's 9:20 now. Which is more preferable as a student volunteer, a formal or informal volunteering? I would suggest you to do both, okay? Formal volunteering is when you volunteer with us, but when you go back to your campus, when you go back to community, we always heard alumni talking that they don't have platform to contribute back. They don't know how they can contribute back because they don't have club, they don't have YSS chapter in the campus. No, you don't need that to contribute back. You can just ask your friends, when you identify some kind of needs to volunteer, you can just ask your friends to go. So I would say as a student volunteer, you can do both. Formal is with us where you are being trained. Okay, you get your trainings, you get your exposure with YSS, and then you apply all those things that you learn informally. All right, as much as we try to encourage, there would still be some people who want an easy life. Yes, that's true. I agree. What is your opinion on volunteering activity where most people think that it can only help solve some problems but not solving their main problems? Alright, so my opinion about this is that the most important thing, okay, the most important principle you have to consider when you do volunteer work is that you don't romanticize volunteer work. Just by going to the ground once doesn't make you suddenly a change maker and you can change how the whole world operates. Even if you only solve little problems, you can take it one step at a time. Okay, approach little by little, approach little problem first, and then at the end of the day, if you have the capability, if you have the support, you can target the main problems. So what I think is that we shouldn't be judgmental about how people approach volunteerism. Volunteerism is such a huge sector. People can volunteer however they want. People can volunteer because whatever cause they want to believe in. But we as a volunteer, the most important character to have is not to be judgmental. In volunteerism, we are all the same, okay? Our major aim is to help people who are in need, no matter who are they, no matter where they come from and whatever. The most important thing is to do things that will benefit them at the end of the day. Sustainable volunteerism is something that is quite hard to maintain, seeing that most volunteer activities or mission are more of a one-off activity. My take on sustainable volunteerism, okay, we can't have a project that goes on for 50 years just to make it sustainable. What makes it sustainable is to empower other people to ensure that the project goes on, okay, the impact lives on, things like that. My take is that, of course, all the projects in this world the principle of a project itself, it must have a start and it must have an end. But how do you want to make it sustainable? It's you yourself by identifying what kind of project that is actually needed. How do you want to empower local community to live on that project, to live on the impact of that project? How do you yourself as a volunteer maintain that project to be sustainable? So these three factors are what I think contributes to sustainability. So when you do project, this is the kind of factors that you have to consider. If not, it will be just one off. That's why we are seeing when you do volunteer missions, we are seeing a lot of hanging garden. You know, even if you know hanging garden won't last that until 10 years, you still do hanging garden. Or even if you know that for example, there was one mission last year in Laos. He taught the kids to recycle by using mineral bottle. Even if you know that this won't sustain, by the end of the day, after the project ends, when the students go back to their home, they will just throw the item. Even if you know that the action is not sustainable, you still do it. Why? Okay, so this is the kind of realization that you also need to have when you do volunteer work. If you want that project to be sustainable, you also have to identify what are the factors, what are the criteria that can make that project live long. What do you think about people nowadays when they assume volunteer is an easy job? I think that is up to them to think volunteer is an easy job. But the most important thing, just like how I explained just now, is you show the impact. You lead by example, okay? People can say whatever they want, people can think whatever they want, but the most important thing is you yourself staying true to your direction. If you think volunteer is a hard job, volunteer is very much a very quite tough sector to be in, you have to show them the impact that you bring to community. This is my personal experience, but a lot of some of my friends, they have this professional job. Okay, they are doctors, they are engineers. They don't see my job as something serious as the sectors that they are in. But what I do is I continuously show them the impact volunteerism actually brought to me, and the how I and the rest of my team contribute to the community. And I think this is what everybody needs to do. People can think that volunteer is just you pergi cat masjid, just that kind of a menial activity. But you yourself have to make the people change their perception by showing them what is actually right about volunteerism. All right, so I think wow, I answered all questions. Okay, if you guys have any other question, you can, or you want to chat with me, you can WhatsApp me. All right, so before we end, I have one more task for you to do. Thank you so much for all the questions. All right, so if you open your Slido, there will be a word cloud fall. Okay, I want you guys to summarize what you have learned today on volunteerism in one word. You can see on the screen now, okay? You can summarize what you have learned tonight on volunteerism in one word. Passion, yes. Love. Meanwhile, Aina, can you help me share the link of the session feedback to the chat column?
Sure, Faz.
We have motivating. Wow, thank you. Intention, systematic, explainable, human, doable. By the way, later we will take picture. So those who don't have tudung on themselves, if you want to be in the picture, you can take your tudung now. Do we have UKK on the line? Kita ada UKK ke on the line? Zulaika ke? Nisa ke? Nope. So right now you have to stand by to take photo, okay?
Sure, no worries. Anything for you, Fuzz.
Alright. Encouragement, adaptability, happy, enthusiasm. Alright, so we are getting 28 responses now. I'm expecting more. We are just in time for this training. 9:30 p.m. now. A lot of you guys answered love. So maybe you felt my love while I deliver this training. Or you felt the love that volunteerism brings. New view. Thank you for saying this. 32 responses, okay? Berapa orang kita ada sekarang, Ina?
At the moment, we have 57 people, including us.
57, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm expecting more responses. This is quite a lot of participation tonight. I thank you guys for staying and listening to me rambles about 1.5 hours. Bonds, networking to work, enjoyment, empathy. 54 responses now. I hope you guys had fun learning tonight. I would also like to again mention that this training course will be happening in other 5 weeks. So if you join all of our 6 trainings, you will get another certificate that certifies you that you have undergo YSS training, volunteer management course. So in the chat box, if you have given the feedback on our active poll on Slido right now, on the chat box, you can see a link that you can provide feedback. So I appreciate if you can provide feedback to tonight's training. We will also send the link when we email you all the materials, maybe tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow. So only if you fill up the feedback form, you will receive the e-certificate. So make sure you fill up the feedback form. Eye opener, thank you so much for saying this. I also appreciate, okay, we at YSS also appreciate if you guys can upload whatever or write up something that you learn about tonight, you learn during the training tonight in your social media and tag us, Yayasan Sukarelawan Siswa on FB, Sukarelawan YSS on Instagram, also Sukarelawan YSS on Twitter. It will be fun for other people to also know that you are having a great time here, and hopefully it will encourage more people to register this training. And okay, upcoming, we will also launch our online training platform. So in there, you can get recorded everyone. So volunteer. Okay, we will launch our online volunteering platform very soon. Hope that there will be fantastic activities for you guys to join, especially this year where we can't actually meet you guys. But if you guys miss us too much, you guys can come to the office, right, to visit us. But make sure you bring food. Alright. Are people stopped Have people stopped responding to the Slido, or we still have responses? Are we ready to take pictures now? Yeah, thank you everyone. Once the online training platform is up, this training will be open to our friends who are not alumni, but maybe there will be charge. We have yet to finalize on that yet. But for now, this training are all free for you guys. So I'm thankful that you guys grabbing this opportunity. All right. I think everybody can show their face now. You will take picture.
Can everyone please turn on their camera, please? Thank you.
Hi everyone. Oh my goodness. Iqbal, kat mana tu? Can you see everything, Aina?
There's
Oh,
still people who hasn't turned on their camera yet, but I think
you don't
we have
want to show your
Azura here and Shasha here who's still. Okay, so I think we'll just go straight ahead. So everybody smile in the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, cheese. All right, I'll pass it back to you first.
All right. So you have taken all the screen, Aina?
Yep.
All 57?
The one who has turned on their camera, of course.
I think you can just take
So
all.
hold on, let me just save this.
You want to take picture again, Aina?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So everybody smile.
Sorry, I unmuted myself. Okay.
Okay, I think we are getting more face right now.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Rindu dia.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, cheese. All right, thank you.
Take all screen, okay? You take all screen tak?
Yes, I did.
Alright, so I think we have come to an end of our session tonight. So if you guys have anything to talk about or wish that I know whatever you guys want to say to me or to YSS, you can chat us. And don't forget, we are hoping for you guys to write something on your social media. And don't forget, we will have this training course happening in 1 month. So, Rahim, we will have a Rahim teaching you guiding how to start your own volunteer project. So we hope that when we broadcast the registration link, you guys will subscribe to it. Okay, you guys will register. All right. So for the e-cert, we will email you once you fill up our feedback form. So please don't forget to fill up our feedback form. All right. So anybody want to say something before I end the meeting? Anybody want to say anything? Tatiana, oh, you are here. Thank you for attending. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. And we hope to see you guys again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.